Good morning. Am I audible? Good morning. Am I audible?
Hello. Now.
So today we are going to start with section 153, that is DIN, direct identification number. So DIN covers section 153 to 159. That is what we are going to start with. Then 160 talks about appointment of a director other than retiring director. 161 talks about different kinds of directors and their appointment. For example, additional director, alternate director, nominee director, and director appointed in casual vacancy. And then comes section 162, which talks about appointment of directors, that is, appointment of more than one director to a single resolution. So today we are trying to cover section 153 to section 162. Okay, that is our target for the day. Now this section, DIN. Okay, so first of all, the first part talks about what is a DIN. Okay, so from the name only you can make out that DIN is basically the identification number allotted to a person who wants to be appointed as a director in a company. Okay, so that will be allotted by the central government. So we had seen that on incorporation, the ROC allots a SIN, that is a corporate identification number, to the company. Similarly, if you want to become a director in a company, you have to have a DIN. Okay, so there is a procedure for that, how to apply for the DIN and all. But you cannot become a director in a company unless you have DIN. If you don't have DIN, you are disqualified to be a director. Plus, under the LLP Act, that is Limited Liability Partnership Act, every LLP needs to have at least two designated partners. That is, at least two partners should be designated, and their responsibility is to comply with all the laws and regulations which are applicable to the LLP. So, if the LLP is not complying with any laws and regulations, then the designated partners will be responsible for that. So, the Act says that if a person has a DPIN, that is designated partners identification number, which a designated partner in LLP is supposed to have, that is also valid in case of a company. So if you are a partner in an LLP who has a DPIN under that law, under the LLP Act 2008, then that is valid as a DIN under the Companies Act 2013. So if you already have a DPIN, then you don't have to separately apply for a DIN. That is what this Act says. So under that Act, the designated partners are supposed to have a DPIN. That is a designated partner identification number. So that is equivalent to a DIN under this Act. Then the procedure is given, how an applicant should apply for the DIN, what is the form, and what is the time limit within which he will get back the DIN after application. Then what is the further procedure after he receives DIN? That is, he has to intimate it to the company. Plus, the company will intimate to the ROC. So every company whose directors have intimated DIN to it, they will have to file a form with the ROC that this is our DIN. So ROC will update. There are various sections under this act where directors can become disqualified and all if the company is not filing returns or statements with the ROC and various other things. So by updating DIN with the ROC has a database through which they know where a person is director, in which companies this person is director. So they have a track record of a person who is DIN. So they will map his DIN to the various companies because every company in which a director is appointed, they will submit a declaration that this guy is our director plus his DIN. So ROC will have a database that one person is a director in all these companies. So if a company is a defaulter in complying various rules and regulations under the act, a person from the ROC website can make out that who the directors were and who were the defaulting directors. So on the basis of that, they can become disqualified. We'll see that how that happens in under section 164. So this is the procedure plus the documents to be submitted along with the form to be submitted. Then various rules like a person cannot have more than one DIN. So just like our PAN number, we cannot have more than one PAN number or more than one Aadhaar card. So also a DIN will be one. Similarly, it is issued for a lifetime. So a DIN will be issued for a lifetime. There is no time limit. Then once a DIN is allotted, any form, return, information, particulars filed by the company should indicate the director's name and his DIN. So wherever any form, return, any information filed with ROC or whatever, wherever they are filing, maybe with SEBI, which includes the name of director, that should also include his DIN. Okay, so director's name, wherever it comes, it should be supported with his DIN. Then there are various occasions where a person may want to cancel or surrender or deactivate his DIN. Later, he can reactivate it also. So there are some occasions where a person can apply to the government to surrender his DIN or cancel his DIN or deactivate. It's the same actually. So there are various occasions are there. For example, the DIN is duplicated. So, for example, he has got two DINs issued to him. So in that case, he will intimate that I have received two DINs. So the government will look into it and they will merge that into one. Then if somebody complains that this guy has obtained DIN in a fraudulent manner by submitting false information, that also is the case where the DIN can be cancelled. But obviously, before cancelling, the government will give an intimation to the person that we are doing this. So they will give him an ROBH, that is a reasonable opportunity of being heard before cancelling, because they are cancelling on someone's complaint. So they will just give a ROBH, that is reasonable opportunity of being heard to the person before they do it. So that's the extreme step they are taking. Then on the death, his legal heirs might intimate that he's dead, so cancel his DIN. If that person is declared as a person of unsound mind, insolvent, or he can come, the individual who has the DIN can come and willfully surrender his DIN. There is a form for that. And plus he has to submit a declaration that he has never used that DIN anywhere. He was never appointed as a director anywhere. So before deactivating, the Government will just check the records that is whatever he's saying is true, and then they will cancel it. But in all these cases, or in some of the cases, or it's not all the cases, some of the cases he can reactivate also. Okay. For example, in the fourth, in the F case, you can later come and reactivate. There is a form for that, DR3. Then, when you submit an application for the allotment of DIN, you submit a lot of details like your name, your address, and everything. If there are any changes in that, you can intimate the government again by filing the respective form along with fees, whatever the changes are, along with fees, obviously, within 30 days of the change. Plus, a copy of proof that this is the change. Plus, it has to be digitally signed by a CA in practice. And government is satisfied, they will make the changes. They'll update their database. Plus, that individual also has to intimate the company wherever is director that these are the changes I have intimated to the ROC. So you also make the changes. Okay. So this is a big section because there are various sections covered here, 153 to 159. But if you see, it is very easy, and questions might be asked in this, and questions are asked. So a question had come on this last part, changes in particular submitted regarding DIN. So that question was asked, and nobody studied this question. So they just asked, what is the procedure for changes in the DIN, for intimation of changes in the DIN. So this is the procedure, these 4 points. So this can be asked. Then a question can come regarding this cancellation, surrender, deactivation of DIN. So in that you have to write A, B, C, D, E, F. Those are the points you need to write. What are the circumstances under which DIN is surrendered or cancelled? So these are the two important parts. Apart from that, a question might be asked about what is the procedure for application of a DIN. These 3 questions can be asked, but chances are instead of asking procedure, because that is a basic question, they will be asking more technical questions like what is the process of change in particulars, or what is the procedure, or what are the circumstances under the DIN can be cancelled or surrendered. So these 2 questions are important in this case. Okay, because institute has the habit of asking more technical questions. Okay, rather than asking basic questions, they will ask technical questions, which generally students ignore. Okay, now let's read the section. Director identification number, DIN. So there is also a cross reference in section 152 subsection 3. So there is also a cross reference in section 152 where they say that a director needs DIN, a valid DIN. And section 153 to 159 talk about what is DIN and what is the procedure to apply for DIN and up to intimation of changes. Now, director identification number, DIN. DIN means an identification number allotted by the central government to any individual intending to be appointed as a director or to any existing director of a company for the purpose of his identification as the director of the company. So DIN is a number allotted by government, central government, to any individual who is intending to be a director or to any existing director of the company for the purpose of his identification as a director of the company. So a person who is appointed as a new director or who is already a director and who doesn't have DIN has to get the DIN.
Hello.
Yeah.
एक्झिस्टिंग डायरेक्टर त्याला व्हायच्या आधी दिन घ्यावा लागत नाही का?
Under the old act, DIN was not compulsory. So existing director was the old director. So under the new rules, he has to get a DIN. So under the Companies Act 13, he will have to get a DIN. So DIN means an identification number allotted by government to any individual who is intending to be who is a new director under this act and already an existing director before the commencement of this act. Plus, they are saying that it is provided that a DIN obtained by individuals prior to notification of the specification of definition details rules shall be DIN for the purpose of Companies Act 13. So if any person has got a DIN even before the rules came, so he has voluntarily applied for a DIN even before the rules came, whenever it was, even if it was not mandatory that time, he got a DIN, that will be valid for this purpose. Plus, DIN includes a DPIN also. So it is to be noted that a director identification number shall include the designated partner identification number DPIN issued under the LLP Act 2008 and rules made thereunder. So if you are already a designated partner under the LLP Act and you have a DPIN, then you don't need to have a DIN. So according to section 152 subsection 3, that is what section 152 said, that no person shall be appointed as a director unless he has been allotted DIN. Under section 154, that is 154 is the section in which you get a DIN, or any other number as may be prescribed under section 153. Any other number is basically you have a DPIN, that is also valid. So either you should have a DIN or a DPIN to become a director. Then filing of application for allotment of DIN. Now 153 section talks about how the application should be filed, deals with the filing of application for allotment of DIN. Accordingly, every individual intending to be appointed as a director of a company shall make an application for allotment of DIN to the central government in the prescribed form and manner and along with the prescribed fees. So prescribed form is the form they will prescribe. Apart from that, you have to attach few documents and also get it attested, plus the fees. And the whole process is online now. It is provided that the central government may prescribe any identification number which shall be treated as a DIN, and in case any individual holds or acquires such identification number, the requirement of section 153 shall not apply or apply in such a manner as may be prescribed. So this they talk about again DPIN. So if you already have a DPIN, then you don't have to apply for DIN. Further, Rule 9 of the Company's Appointment and Qualification of Directors, Rules 14, states the following procedure for making an application for allotment of DIN before appointment in an existing company. So this is the procedure where they state what is the exact steps that a person should take for application of DIN. So this can become a question, that the procedure for making application for allotment of DIN before appointment in an existing company already there. Now why existing company they are saying? Because there is another procedure where when you are incorporating a company, there is a form called INC 32. It's an online form that is to be submitted for incorporation of company. So while you are incorporating a company, it's a new company. In that form, there is an option that you can get DIN of up to 3 directors. Up to 3 persons DIN you can apply simultaneously with the incorporation of the company. So in the same form, you can apply for DINs of 3 persons. So that is why the mentioned, there is the line which says that before appointment in an existing company. If an existing company is there, so already it's incorporated, then DR3 will be required. Otherwise, if it's a new company, you can apply through INC 32. That is what they mean. That is why they have added a proviso here that is provided that. We'll read about that. So every applicant who intends to be appointed as a director of an existing company will make an application electronically in form DR3 to the central government for allotment of a DIN along with prescribed fees. So that is the first point. Provided that in case of proposed directors, so this is not in the case of existing company, this is the case of new company. Provided that in case of proposed directors not having approved DIN, so if they already don't have a DIN, the particulars of maximum 3 directors shall be mentioned in form number INC 32 PICE. PICE is basically online form. So that is simplified pro forma for incorporation of companies electronically. That is the short form for the online forms. So they call it simplified pro forma. It is simplified forms for incorporation of companies electronically. So they call it SPICE. And DIN may be allotted to maximum 3 proposed directors through form INC 32. So in case of new companies, they can apply through SPICE. That is, they can apply to INC 32. Otherwise, in case of an existing company, you can apply through DIR 3. Now, central government shall provide a system, an electronic system, to facilitate submission of application for the allotment of DIN to the portal on website of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So obviously, you should go to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and apply for the DIN. So government will have to make the arrangements of that system. So they have to basically have a fully functional website. And they have actually. So the law says that they should have. So they have obviously made that website. Now, applicant shall download the form DIR3 from the portal, fill in the required details, required particulars or therein, verify and sign the form. They should sign the form digitally. And after attaching copies of the following documents, scan and file the entire set of documents electronically. So they are saying download the form, fill in the particulars, verify and sign, and after attaching copies of the following documents, scan and file the entire set document electronically. So you have to scan and upload the documents. Photograph, obviously, normal document like photo, identity proof, address proof, specimen of signature, so like that. So photograph, proof of identity, proof of residence, board resolution proposing his appointment as director in case of existing company. So if it's an existing company, then also a board resolution also he has to upload, scan and upload. Then specimen signature duly verified. Signature he has to upload, his own signature. Plus he has to get it attested electronically. Form DIR3 shall be signed and submitted electronically by the applicant using his or her own digital signature certificate. So he has to digitally sign it, and also it shall be verified digitally by the company secretary in full-time employment of the company. So it has to be verified by the company secretary of that company in which he is to be appointed, or by the managing director of that company, or director or CEO or CFO of the company in which the applicant is intended to be appointed as a director in an existing company. This is the case of existing company. So it has to be verified digitally by either a company secretary of that company or a MD or director or CEO or CFO in which he is supposed to be appointed. So he has to sign it, plus any company secretary of that company will sign. Now, few people don't have a last name. So in case the name of a person does not have a last name, then his or her father's name or grandfather's surname or name shall be mentioned in the last name along with declaration in form number DIR3. So if you don't have a second name, then your father's or grandfather's name will be added to you as your surname, and that you have to submit in form DIR3. This is not an important point. Now, allotment of DIN. So supposedly you have done all the procedure. Now, under section 154, this section talks about allotment of DIN. So government shall allot a DIN to the applicant in prescribed manner within 1 month from the receipt of application. So maximum time allotted to the government is 1 month. Now, Rule 10 provides the procedure for rejection or allotment of DIN. So this is the procedure for the government. So for example, You made all the documents, you submitted all the documents and paid all the fees and everything, and you submit everything. An application number is generated. So you can track your application also. So what is the status? So an application number is generated immediately. Now, after you submit everything, the government will process your application. Obviously. They will look into it, whether you have given all the details and submitted all the necessary documents plus fees. If everything is in order, they will allot you the DIN. They will send you a letter by post or by email. Now, if central government finds your application defective, something is missing or incomplete, they will intimate you by email. Plus, they will put it on their website. Now, as an applicant, you have to rectify the defect within 15 days from the notice you receive. Now, if you rectify the defect and the government finds that everything is order now, they will allow you the DIN. If you don't rectify the defect correctly, so there is still a defect pending, the government will see and they will reject your application and no fees will be refunded. Thirdly, you don't correct the defects. Then also 15 days are over, the government will reject your application because you were supposed to rectify the defect within 15 days. You didn't revert, so basically government will cancel your application and also the fees whatever you have submitted will be forfeited. They won't be refunded. And if you want to make application again, make a fresh application. But if everything is in order, they will grant you the DIN. So on submission of form DR3 on the portal and on payment of the requisite fees, an application number shall be generated by the system electronically or automatically. So normally this is what happens. So even when you apply for a passport, a application number is generated. Through that you can track your status. After generation of application number, the central government shall process the application received for allotment of DIN and decide on the approval or rejection thereof and communicate the same to the applicant along with the DIN allotted in case of approval by way of letter of post or electronically or in any other mode within a period of 1 month from the receipt of application. So on receipt of the application, they will process it and if everything is in order, they will approve it. And they will intimate him through email or by letter of post. If the government on examination finds such application to be defective or incomplete in any respect, it shall give intimation of such defect or incompleteness by placing it on the website and by email to the applicant who has filed the application. They will intimate him obviously. The applicant shall be directed to rectify the defects or incompleteness by resubmitting the application within a period of 15 days from placing on the website and email. So you have 15 days to correct it. Now, it is provided that the government shall reject the application and direct the applicant to file a fresh application with complete and correct information where the defect has been rectified partially or the information given is still found to be defective. So when the applicant rectifies it, but still it is not rectified completely or the information is still found to be defective by the government, they will reject the application and tell him to file a fresh one. Treat and label such application as invalid in electronic record in case the defects are not removed within the given time. They will treat the application as invalid if the applicant doesn't correct it, rectify it, and inform the applicant either by way of letter by post or electronically or in any other mode that we have rejected the application. And in case of rejection or invalidation of application, the fee so paid with the application shall neither be refunded nor adjusted with the next application. So if he files another application, he will have to file fresh fees. All DINs allotted to individuals by central government before the commencement of these rules shall be deemed to have been allotted to them under these rules. So if any DIN was allotted before the commencement of these rules, will be valid under these rules also. They will be deemed to be allotted under these rules, even if they were allotted before the commencement of these rules. The DIN so allotted is valid for a lifetime of the applicant and shall not be allotted to any other person. So one person will get one DIN for life, and the same DIN won't be allotted to any other person. There is a prohibition of obtaining more than one DIN. You can have only one DIN. No person is allowed to have two DINs or three DINs. That is what section 155 says. No individual who has already been allotted a DIN under 154 shall apply for or possess or obtain another DIN. Then the responsibility of director, once he gets the DIN, once he gets the intimation from the government that he has been allotted a DIN, then he has to intimate the company where he is to be appointed as a director within 30 days. So section 156 talks about the responsibility of director, that every existing director shall, within 1 month of the receipt of DIN from the government, intimate his DIN to the company or all the companies wherein he is a director. Company to inform DIN to registrar, plus there is a responsibility on the company on receipt of such an intimation from the director that this is my DIN. The company also, so within 15 days of such intimation under 156, that is the intimation of director, they will have to furnish, the company has to furnish the DIN of all its directors to the registrar or to any other officer or authority as may be specified by the government, with such fees or additional fees as may be prescribed in the prescribed form. So director to intimate to the company within 30 days, company to intimate to ROC within 15 days. Now this is not important. This is the old provision. So this is like every director functioning as a director in one or more companies on or before 30th June 2007. So that is no longer important now. Now punishment for failure to furnish DIN to registrar, penalty clause. So if a company fails to submit the DIN of the directors to registrar, that is under this section, under section 157, then it shall be liable to penalty as under. Now this is for the company. Penalty will be 25,000 and rupees 100 per day till the default continues, subject to maximum 1 lakh. Plus every defaulting officer, every director of the company on the date shall be liable to a penalty as under minimum 25 plus 100 per day, maximum 1 lakh. So 25,000, 100 per day is adding up. It cannot go more than 1 lakh. Then obligation to indicate DIN, section 158. This is what I had told you, that every person or company, while furnishing any return information particulars required under the Act, shall mention the DIN in such return information or particulars in case that return particulars information mentions the name of the director. So wherever the name of the director is there, the DIN should be mentioned. So every person or company, while furnishing any return information particulars as required to be furnished under this Act, shall mention the DIN in such information wherever the information relates to a director. Plus again a penalty section for contravention of 152, 155, 156. 152 was the previous section. Plus that section says that a director needs to have a DIN. 155, 156 is basically 156 is director to intimate DIN. 155 is that a person cannot apply for more than one DIN. So if a person contravenes with that, so section 159 talks about a penalty, provides that if any individual director of a company makes any default in complying with any of the provisions of 152, or that is to get a DIN, section 155, tries to get more than one DIN, 156 doesn't intimate the DIN to the company, then such individual or director of the company shall be liable to a penalty as under up to 50,000 penalty, and where the default is a continuing one with a further penalty up to 500 per day after the first, during which the default continues. So 50,000 plus 50 plus 500 per day, it will start adding up till he complies with the provisions. Cancellation or surrender or deactivation and reactivation. Now, in this case, the central government or the regional director, Northern Region, Noida, or any other officer authorized by regional director may, upon being satisfied on verification of particulars or documentary proof attached with the application received along with the fees from any person, cancel or deactivate the DIN in case. Now, in this case, you can just write the central government. Don't need to write regional director, Noida, and all that. Just write the central government. Okay. Upon being satisfied on verification of particulars or documentary proof attached with the application, received along with the prescribed fee from any person, cancel or deactivate the DIN in case. So central government will cancel or deactivate a DIN on receipt of an application along with the requisite proof and fee. And if it is satisfied that it comes under any of these conditions, then they will cancel it. So in these cases, the government, if it has received an application along with the proof, along with the fee, they might cancel the DIN. Firstly, the DIN is found to be duplicated in respect of the same person, provided the data related to both the DINs shall be emerged with a validly retained number. So if a person has been allotted two DINs, a mistake, so it has been duplicated, then the person can intimate that please cancel one of the DINs, merge that into one. Secondly, DIN was obtained in a wrongful manner or by fraudulent means. Obviously, that person won't intimate. Some other person might intimate along with proof. So obviously, before cancelling the DIN, the government will have to give that person whose DIN will be cancelled a reasonable opportunity of being heard, that we have received such information. So give us the reason why we should not cancel your DIN. So show cause why we should not cancel. So they will hear him and they will cancel it. However, before cancellation or deactivation of DIN, pursuant to this clause B above, an opportunity of being heard, that is ROBH, reasonable opportunity of being heard, shall be given to the concerned individual. Now, in this point, they are saying the wrongful manner term or fraudulent term, which was used in the above clause, wrongful manner or fraudulent means. So, what does that mean? The term wrongful manner means if the DIN is obtained on the strength of documents which are not legally valid, so fake documents he has submitted to obtain a DIN, or incomplete documents are furnished, or he has tried to suppress some information, suppression of material information, or on the basis of wrong certification. So he has said that the CS has certified, but actually the CS had not certified. Some other person had certified. Or by making misleading or false information, or by misrepresentation. Misrepresentation is basically shows that he is that person, but he actually is not. Fraudulent means the DIN is obtained with an intent to deceive any person, maybe the company or the government, anybody. Then on death of the concerned individual, the concerned individual has been declared as a person of unsound mind by a court competent. If the concerned individual has been adjudicated as insolvent, so he has been declared as an insolvent by the court. And last case is on an application made in form DR5 by DIN holder to surrender his or her DIN along with declaration that he has never been appointed as a director in a company and the said DIN has never been used for filing any document with any authority, the central government may deactivate such DIN. So if a person who had applied for a DIN but he was never appointed as a director and he has never filed any document with that DIN, he will apply for surrender. And before doing that, before deactivating his DIN, the government will check the records whether whatever he's saying is true. Because if he was appointed as director in some company, the company would have intimated the ROC. Thus, they will check the records, if whatever he's saying is true or not. So, however, before deactivation of DIN, in the above case F, the government shall verify the e-records. Again, the central government shall deactivate the director's DIN of an individual who does not intimate his particulars in e-form DR3 KYC within the stipulated time in accordance with Rule 12. So for a director also, he has to submit a KYC form, like we have to submit in a bank. So if a director fails to submit that KYC, also his DIN will be deactivated if he doesn't submit within the stipulated time. Now the deactivated DIN shall be reactivated only after e-form DR3 is filed along with fee in prescribed form. So in some cases, like in the above, if the KYC was not submitted and his DIN was deactivated, he can again reactivate it on submission of form DR3 with fee. Now changes, if there are any changes in the particular submitted in the application of DIN, and you have received a DIN, but now you want to change the particulars which you had filed with the government in your old application. So every individual who has been allotted a DIN under these rules shall, in the event of any change in the particulars, so your address has changed or your name has changed. So every individual who has been allotted a DIN under these rules shall, in the event of any change in the particulars in form DR3, intimate such changes to the government within 30 days of such change in form DR6. So change के लिए form is DR6 in the following manner. Again, download the form DR6 from the portal, fill the relevant changes, verify the form, and attach duly scanned copy of the proof of the changes, the change particulars, and submit electronically. Download, fill the form, sign it, attach a copy of the proof, whatever change is there. So, for example, if your address has changed, attach the new address and submit it electronically. Again, that form has to be digitally signed by a CA in practice. And submit the form. If the government is satisfied that you have submitted everything properly along with the proof and the fees, they will incorporate the changes and intimate the applicant by post or electronically. And they will make the relevant changes in their database. Plus, the DIN cell of the ministry. There is a cell for the DIN. So a DIN cell of the ministry shall also intimate the changes in particulars of the DIN submitted to it in form DR6 to the concerned registrars under whose jurisdiction the registered office of the companies in which such individual director is situated. The DIN cell will intimate all the ROCs wherever that director or in, you can say, they have mentioned a line here. The DIN cell will intimate to the concerned registers wherever the companies in which that person is a director are registered. So basically, if a director is a director in a company in Mumbai, so the DIN cell will intimate the ROC Mumbai. Similarly, if that director is a director in the company registered in Pune, so that DIN cell will intimate the ROC Pune, and so on. They are saying the DIN cell will also intimate the changes in particulars of directors submitted to it in form DR6 to the concerned registrars under whose jurisdiction the registered office of the companies in which the individual is director is situated. Plus, the individual has the responsibility to intimate the company. The concerned individual shall also intimate the changes in his particulars to the company or the companies in which he is director within 15 days of such change. So in this case, what was important, as I told you, is that this part, changes, this is a question straight away. Intimation of changes in particular specified in DIN application. So this whole thing you have to write. You can start directly from this point, every individual first point up to the fourth point, very important. Then cancellation or surrender or deactivation and reactivation of DIN. So here you can start with the central government. Don't write regional director and all that. The central government upon being satisfied, and then point A, B, C, D, E, F, 2, 3. So I see 1, 2, 3. Now this penalty clause is not important. Procedure for allotment of DIN. So this is the question, filing of application for allotment of DIN 153. So it will start from here. 1, every applicant. 2, 3, 4. That is this thing. And allotment of DIN also included in that. In that 1, 2, 3, 4. And these points you can just add as notes at the end. Prohibition on obtaining more than one DIN. You can just write this heading. Director to intimate DIN to company within 15 days, sorry, within 30 days. So director to intimate DIN, just write within 30 days to company, and company to inform DIN to register within 15 days. Just these 2-3 points you need to add at the end. Okay. Penalty clause we don't study because we won't be able to remember that in the exam. And also this point you can add, obligation to indicate DIN, that in whatever particulars are submitted or return submitted by company or information, and wherever director name is mentioned, DIN also has to be mentioned. Okay. Have you understood this DIN provision? All the sections?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, next is section 160, right of persons other than the retiring directors to stand for directorship. So last time, when we were studying section 152, there is a cross reference here. So when we were studying section 152, there we had studied that in case of public company, the directors have to retire by rotation. So in that we had seen that either all the directors of the company will retire at the AGM, or minimum 2/3 of the directors shall be rotational, and out of that 1/3 will retire at every AGM. And at the AGM, the same directors can be again reappointed, or in their place, new directors can be appointed. Depends on their performance. Now, this section talks about the appointment of other persons instead of the retiring directors. So, instead of appointing the person who is retiring, instead of reappointing that person, a new person is to be appointed in his place. So, this is that section. So, which says that any other person can also stand for directorship who is not a retiring director, and he can be appointed in the place of the retiring director. Now, in this case, they are saying that if a person wants to be appointed as director, then he has to send a notice to the company that I want to be appointed as a director. Notice should be sent at least 14 days before the meeting in which the director is supposed to be appointed. Or any other member of the company can propose the name of a person who he wants to be appointed as a director in place of the retiring director. So a person who wants to be appointed as director can himself send notice to the company, or any member of the company can propose a name of another person who will be appointed as director in the company. Again, in both cases, 14 days before the meeting in which the decision has to be taken, they have to submit the notice to the company. But here, to check the seriousness, a deposit of rupees 1 lakh has to be paid to the company. Now, if this person gets appointed as a director, then the deposit will be refunded. If not, the deposit will be forfeited. Or if he gets at least 25% of the votes in his favor, the deposit can be refunded. So basically, only serious candidates will send a notice or will try to stand for directorship. If they know there are no chances, then they won't obviously apply, because they have to give a deposit of 1 lakh. So only serious people who know they will be elected will obviously send a notice. So this is what this section is all about. Apart from that, when such a notice has been received by the company 14 days before the meeting, the company shall intimate all other members that such a person has given us a notice, or any other member has given a notice of some candidate who he wants to be appointed as director. So the other members will also come to know that this is the guy who can be appointed as director. Plus, if the notice is received late, or maybe the company is not able to send notice to the members, they can publish that in newspapers, English and vernacular. So in that case, notice won't be necessary, because you are giving a public notice. In case of Nidhi companies, last time we studied, the deposit will be 10,000 rupees, not 1 lakh. So basically, if you have studied section 152, in which you saw the directors were retiring at the AGM and they could be reappointed, or some other person can be reappointed in their place. This is that section which says that some other person has the right to stand for directorship who is not a retiring director. So basically, any person who is not a retiring director, if he wants to get appointed as a director, he has to go through section 160. So in the case which we'll be studying later after this, that is 161. So there are some directors like additional director or alternate director, or maybe a nominee director. So we'll be studying after this section. So these guys are never retiring directors. Okay, they have a fixed term generally. So additional director is generally appointed by the board only, and he continues till the next AGM. His term is over. So he's never counted in the retiring directors. So in that case, if he wants to get appointed as a director, as a normal director, after his term is over, then he will have to go through section 160, because he is not a retiring director in the first place. So any person who is not a retiring director will have to go by 160. A person who is not a retiring director is also eligible to stand for directorship. Section 160 of the Act and Rule 13 of the Companies Appointment and Qualification of Directors Rules 14 contain the provision in this respect. These are discussed as under: notice, requirement of written notice. A person who is not a retiring director shall be eligible for appointment as a director at any general meeting if he has left at the registered office of the company a notice in writing under his hand, signifying his candidature as a director at least 14 days before the meeting. So 14 days before the meeting, in which such a decision will be taken of appointing directors. A person who is not a retiring director can send a written notice to the company signifying his candidature 14 days before the meeting, 2 weeks before the meeting. Plus, instead of the above person, some other member of the company who intends to propose such other person as director can also leave a written notice at the registered office of the company, signifying his intention to propose the other person as a candidate for directorship at least 14 days before the meeting. So either a person himself or a member who proposes him. In both cases, there is a requirement of deposit. The written notice needs to be accompanied with the deposit of 1 lakh or such higher amount as may be prescribed. Now they are saying the deposit of 1 lakh shall not apply in the following cases. In case the appointment of an independent director, so in case of independent director is recommended by a member or something, then deposit won't be required. In case in companies where there is a nomination and remuneration committee, so in big companies, listed companies or big companies, there is a NRC, that is nomination and remuneration committee, which recommends directors which can be appointed on the board. So in that case, if the NRC has recommended, then deposit not necessary because it is the internal committee of the company which has recommended. And in some cases where there is no NRC, the board can recommend names. So if the board is recommending, then again there is no need for deposit. Only when an outsider is applying or a member is recommending an outsider, then that case. But in case of independent director or in case of the NRC is recommending someone, or if the board is recommending someone, then deposit won't be needed. Now, action by company. As soon as the notice is received, the company shall inform its members regarding the candidature of a person for the office of director in accordance with the rules. At least 7 days before the meeting, the company shall inform its members of such candidature by serving individual notices through electronic mode to such members who have provided the email addresses for communication purposes and in writing to all other members. By placing notice on their website also, if any. They are saying there is no need to serve notice individually if it advertises such candidature not less than 7 days before the meeting. So if it gives a notice in the newspapers only, then there is no need to serve notice individually to members. At least once in a vernacular newspaper in the principal vernacular language of the district in which the office is situated, and at least once in English language in an English newspaper circulating district. So English and vernacular always. Refund, the amount of deposit shall get refunded to such person or as the case may be to the member if the person proposed gets selected as a director or gets more than 25% of the total valid votes cast either on show of hands or on poll. So show of hands and poll are the voting methods. But basically, if he gets elected or at least gets more than 25% of the votes in his favor, he will get the refund of the deposit. Otherwise, no refund. The expression retiring director means director retiring by rotation, which we already know. Now they are saying that not all directors are retiring. So first of all, you should know which directors are not retiring. So here they have explained about additional director. So additional director or alternate director, nominee, or any director appointed to fill a casual vacancy. That, for example, if a director vacates his office because of his death or incapacity or whatever, or resigns, then board can appoint, that is, board can fill in the vacancy. Nominee director is basically a director who is appointed by the bank or financial institution which has granted loan to the company. So this guy is a representative of the bank on the board just to see whether the funds are utilized properly. Alternate director is basically a director who is appointed as a replacement of the director who is going out of India for more than 3 months. Again, the board has the power to appoint such a guy. Additional director is basically when there is a lot of pressure on the board, they need additional people on the board. So in that case, the board will additionally appoint one director on the board. This is the next section, section 161, which talks about all these directors. So these guys are never retiring directors. Okay, their term is separate. So they are not retiring. So they are never counted in the retiring directors also, or neither in the total number of directors while calculating the retiring directors. So they are saying that if these guys want to get appointed as a director, then they will have to go by section 160. Because even if they are directors and their term gets over, they are not retiring directors. They are never counted in the total number of directors for calculating the retiring directors. They are separate because there is a separate section for these directors. So therefore, if an additional director or alternate director or nominee director or director appointed to fill a casual vacancy is to be appointed as a regular director at general meeting, the procedure prescribed by 160 is to be followed. So on ending of his term, if he wants to get reappointed as a proper director, then section 160 he has to comply with. So he will have to send a notice to the company 14 days before the meeting that I want to be appointed as a director, and the company will intimate the members and all that. Similarly, where director retires by rotation, but instead of reappointing him, a new person in his place is proposed to be appointed. Again, 160 are applied. So any other person apart from additional director, alternate director can also be appointed. Again, 160 has to be applied. Then in case of Nidhi, deposit is 10,000. In case of Section 8 companies, they are saying the board shall decide as to whether deposit of 1 lakh is to be forfeited or refunded if the person proposed fails to secure more than 25% of the votes. So in the case of Section 8 company, the board can decide whether to refund even if the person doesn't get votes. Again, they are saying Section 160 doesn't apply to government companies or subsidiary of government companies. Also, private companies, it is not applicable because private company, they have their own rules. No outsider can apply for becoming a director in that company. So again, this section is only applicable to public companies. Yes, any doubt in this section?
No, sir.
Okay. So 160 मध्ये कसं आहे? Very important section, by the way. So section 160, you have to write one, requirement of notice. Second, requirement of deposit. The exceptions, action by company, the whole thing, refund. Okay, only till this point. This thing you just need to read, no need to write it. Okay, so up to fourth point you can write, but if you want, you can write this note too also, because a question can be asked in the exam, something like additional director, uh, the term got over at the AGM, he wants to get appointed as a regular director, what is the procedure? And again you have to write about 160. So there you have to understand that 160 is attracted. So you can write this because a practical question can come. So note 2 also you can add. And just write Nidhi 10,000 instead of deposit. In wherever you're writing the deposit point now, just bracket mother you can write Nidhi 10,000, and that's it. And just you can write section not applicable to government and private company. Okay. Now this is the section 161, which talks about appointment of additional director, alternate director, or director to fill casual vacancy, and nominee director. Very important section. Generally, a question is asked about this. Now, additional director, section 161, subsection 1. Basically, there is immense pressure on the board. They need more people on the board. So in this case, the board can appoint additional people on the board as a director. So they are called additional directors. So here the board has the power to appoint directors on the board, but obviously the power comes from the articles. So only if the articles say so, the board has the power. If the articles don't say, the board doesn't have power. Now this guy will be a director just as any other director. Only thing is his term will be till the next AGM. So he will only continue till the next AGM. So he can be appointed anytime, but his term will be up to the next AGM. So he'll automatically retire, not as a retiring director, but as his term will get over at that AGM. Even if the AGM is not conducted, he has to vacate on the last day on which the AGM was supposed to be held. He cannot continue for any more term. Plus all other duties and liabilities will apply to him. He is supposed to have a DIN. And he has all the powers of a director, just like any other director. Additional director. The articles of the company may confer on its board the power to appoint any person as an additional director at any time. The board has the power. Normally, we have seen that the shareholders will appoint directors in general meeting, but these directors are appointed by the board, subject to the powers in the articles. So the articles of the company may confer on its board the power to appoint any person as an additional director at any time. But they have given one important point here is that if a person who failed to got appointed as a director in general meeting, so shareholders have rejected this guy. Now that guy cannot be appointed as additional director by the board. Otherwise, what will happen? A person who is rejected by the shareholders. So, for example, the resolution was kept in front of the shareholders in general meeting, and they rejected him. We don't want this guy. But the same guy gets appointed as an additional director. That won't be fair, no? That is why they have said a person who fails to get appointed as a director in general meeting cannot be appointed as additional director. So if you have already been rejected by shareholders, you cannot be appointed as here. It will be like a backdoor entry. It will be unfair to the shareholders. So additional director shall hold office up to the date of the next AGM or on the last day on which the AGM should have been held, whichever is earlier. The logic is with a view to meet urgent requirements of management, the board is empowered to appoint any person as an additional director at any time if such power is granted by the articles. The notable point is that it is not section 161 subsection 1, but articles which confer the power. So power is coming from the articles. 161 just says the procedure and the circumstances in which the additional director might be appointed. Again, the person to be appointed as additional director should possess DIN and must not be a person who has failed to be appointed in general meeting. This brings to the fore the power of shareholders. That is, any person discarded as director at a general meeting by shareholders cannot be appointed as additional director by board through backdoor entry. Further, additional director is not a retiring director. Therefore, his appointment as a regular director requires the provisions of 160. So whenever he vacates his office on completion of his term, and if he wants to get reappointed, he has to go by 160. Term. The term is limited to the holding of the ensuing AGM, that is the next AGM. Even if the AGM is not held on the last due date, that is the last day on which the AGM should have been held, the term ends here itself, there itself, and it cannot be extended to the date when the AGM in actuality shall be held in a future date after its due date. Normally, the due date of AGM is 30th September, following the end of the financial year. So if on that date the AGM doesn't happen, he has to vacate. Now, if they maybe adjourn the AGM, maybe 1st or maybe 10th October, still he won't be continuing because last day was 30th September. So even if the AGM is adjourned maybe to the next week or something like that, he won't be able to continue. Alternate director. basically there is a director on the board who is maybe going out of India for more than 3 months. The board can appoint, not that director, board can appoint any person in his place as an alternate director. So this guy's term will be up till whenever that director returns. That is, as soon as this guy leaves, he can be appointed. And whenever that guy again comes back to India, his term will get over. But again, he is not a proxy to that director. Neither he is an agent of that director. He is a director in his own right. So he can use his own brain. He can take his own decisions. But basically, he is filling the seat of that director who is going out of India for more than 3 months. And the most important point is the board will be appointing such a guy, not the director who is leaving. If a person is leaving for maybe USA for more than 3 months, he's going to stay there, then he cannot, before leaving, just designate his office to someone else and go. He doesn't have that power. Only the board can appoint an alternate director. Hence, term will be till that director returns. So as soon as this director leaves, they can appoint. So they don't have to wait for 3 months or for him to reach there and all that. As soon as he leaves India, they will appoint that person. And as soon as he comes back, he lands in India again. This guy's term will be over. Section 161, subsection 2 of the Act provides for appointment of alternate director. So according to this section, the board of the company may, if so authorize, again the authorization comes from the articles, or by resolution passed by company general meeting, or they can be authorized by a resolution in general meeting. So if the articles don't authorize them, they can get authorization from general meeting. Appoint a person not being a person holding any alternate directorship of any other director in the company. So basically, a director can be alternate director of only one person. He cannot be holding like alternate directorships of 2 or more persons in the same company. So not being a person holding any alternate directorship of any other director in the company, or holding directorship in the same company. Plus, he need not be a director already. This should be a new guy who is not a director, neither he is an alternate director of some other person in the company. To act as an alternate director for a director during his absence for a period of not less than 3 months from India. No person shall be appointed as an alternate director for an independent director unless he is qualified to be appointed as an independent director under the provisions of this Act. So if alternate director is to be appointed for an independent director, obviously the alternate director also has to meet the criteria for independence. That is section 149 subsection 6 he has to meet. The alternate director shall not hold office for a period longer than that permissible to original director, in whose place he has been appointed, and shall vacate the office if and when the original director returns to India. So as soon as the original director returns to India, his office will be vacated. At the same time, if the original director, in this case we talk about the director who leaves as the original director, and a person who is appointed in his place as the alternate director. So for example, if the original director's term gets over even before he returns to India, then also alternate director's term will get over, because basically his term is basically the term of the original director. So if that person's term only it's over before even he returns to India, even the alternate director's term will be over. For example, if the original director retires at the next AGM, he is out of India, but he retires at the AGM as per the rotational rules, then even the alternate director will retire. Or before that happens, if that guy returns to India, then also he will retire. He has to vacate, that is. And obviously, if this alternate director, whenever his term is over, if he wants to get reappointed as a director, as a normal director, then he has to go by section 160. If the term of office of original director is determined as terminated before he so returns to India, any provision for automatic reappointment of retiring director in default of another appointment shall apply to original director and not to alternate director. In section 152, we had seen that the directors shall retire by rotation at the AGM, and if that AGM or at the adjourned AGM also no director is appointed in their place, the retiring directors will be deemed to be reappointed. So, for example, if the original director is retiring at the AGM and there is no person appointed in his place, neither at that AGM or that adjourned AGM, then he will get reappointed, not the alternate director. He will get reappointed. So, automatic reappointment is for the original director, not for the alternate director. Again, the power to appoint alternate director rests with the board. However, such power must be conferred by articles or by resolution at general meeting. Now they have given the explanation what is alternate director. He is appointed in place of a regular director who has gone out of India. The period of absence of such original director from India must be minimum 3 months or more. A short absence of less than 3 months does not entitle the board to appoint alternate director. So if he has to go for 3 months minimum, obviously he should possess a DIN. Even the alternate director has to possess a DIN. Additional director has to possess a DIN. Plus the same point that a person selected for appointment as alternate director must not be one who is holding any alternate directorship for any other director in the company. So already he should not be alternate director of some other director. He can be alternate director in some other company, but not in the same company. Okay. So I can be appointed as alternate director in this company, and I can also be alternate director of some other director in another company. That is okay, but not in the same company. In other words, a person who is already an alternate director in the company cannot hold another alternate directorships in that company. Further, he should not be the director also in that company. So further, director person shall not be a director in the same company. So you cannot be a director in the company in your own right and also alternate director of some other person. Thus, a person already a director cannot at the same time be alternate director in the same company. But a person holding directorship in any other company can be considered for the appointment as alternate director. But there is a section called section 165, which calculates the maximum number of directorships a person can have. That is something called 20, I think. 20 is the maximum directorships you can have. And in that also, maximum 10 directorships you can have in the public companies. So as a person, you can be a director in maximum 20 companies, subject to not more than 10 directorships in public companies. So while counting that total number of directorships, even alternate directorship is counted. However, for considering maximum number of directorship of a person, section 165, the alternate directorships also be counted. So a fresh alternate directorship should be taken up by person concerned only if he is already holding of regular as well as alternate directorship does not exceed maximum limit. So before you are appointed as alternate director, just check whether you are within the limit. Further, he should not be disqualified as a director. Obviously, you are a director in your own right, so don't be disqualified. Section 164 talks about disqualification. So basically, that person should not be of unsound mind, should not be insolvent, should have a DIN and all that. Again, in case of original director is an independent director and he leaves India for 3 months or more, the person who is appointed in his place as alternate director must also be qualified to be an independent director. Because you are replacing an independent director, then you also should be independent director. And independent means he has to satisfy the criteria as per 149 subsection 6. Again, any person who is appointed as director, he has to submit his consent. So even this guy has to submit his consent. So a would-be alternate director is not exempted from furnishing his consent to act as director. Therefore, he must furnish his consent in DIR2 to the company on or before his appointment, and the company shall file the consent with ROC in DIR12. Term. The term of office coincides with the permissible term applicable to the original director and in whose place he has been appointed. Basically, his term is the term of the original director. The term shall not be longer than the term which is permissible to original director. So he cannot be appointed for, he cannot continue for more time than what was the term of the original director. And as soon as the original director ceases to be director, maybe death also, the alternate director follows his steps and is required to vacate office. So as soon as the original director's term is over, by any reason, his term is also over. Further, he shall vacate office immediately on the return of that director to India. Again, they are saying it may happen that a term of original director expires while he is still outside India. So his term might expire by retirement or something. In such case, the provisions relating to automatic deemed reappointment as envisaged in section 152 subsection 7 shall apply to original director and not to alternate director. Thus, the original director shall be deemed to be reappointed at the adjourned AGM if the company does not appoint any other person on the expiry of the. So obviously, the original director will get reappointed, not the alternate director. Now, this is a question that is normally asked as practical in this part. Appointment of alternate director by original director. So in the question, they will give you that this guy A, who is a director in the company, he leaves for USA and he's going to be there for more than 3 months. So before leaving, he appoints B as director in his place. Is this a valid thing? Then you'll have to write about section 167 that what is alternate director and board has the power to appoint, not this guy. The original director who is leaving to a place outside India cannot himself appoint an alternate director in his place. It is the board which shall make the appointment because the authority for such appointment vests in the board. So as you read section 161 section subsection 2, you clearly saw that the board had the power subject to articles and subject to resolution in general meeting. They have the power. Example, they have a practical question given. So similar question can be asked in the exam. Mr. Q, a director of PQR Limited, proceeding on a long foreign tour, period of duration outside India exceeds 3 months, appointed Mr. Y as an alternate director to act for him during his absence. So like he appointed a proxy. The articles of the company provide for appointment of alternate director. So they will also give you that articles provide, yes, you can appoint alternate director. Mr. Q claims, that is the original director claims, that he has the right to appoint alternate director as the articles are providing advice. So first you have to quote the provision that under section 161 subsection 2, the board of directors may, if so authorized by its articles or by resolution passed by company general meeting, this is the language you have to use, appoint a person not being a person holding any alternate directorship for any other director in the company or holding directorship in the same company to act as an alternate director for the director during his absence for a period of not less than 3 months from India. So clearly it mentions that the board of directors may. From the above provisions, it is clear that the authority to appoint alternate director has been vested in the board only, and that too subject to empowerment by the articles or by resolution passed by company general meeting. Therefore, Q is not authorized to appoint an alternate director, and the appointment of Mr. Y is not valid. This is the answer you need to write. Understood? Additional and alternate. Any doubt?
No, understood.
Okay. Next one is nominee. Now, the logic is that whenever a bank or a financial institution grants a big loan to a company, in the loan agreement, they state that our person will be appointed as a director on your board, as a nominee director. So one of the terms of the loan agreement is that our person who is representing the bank will be appointed as a director on your board as we are giving you a very big loan. Obviously, this guy's duty will be to oversee the use of funds given by the bank to the company, and to see that the funds are not being misused and they are used for the purposes for which the loan has been given. Similarly, in case of a government company, the government can also appoint their nominee on the board of the company by virtue of their shareholding. So this is the nominee director. So he is like any other director. Obviously, he is not independent because he is representing some stakeholder in the company, like the bank or the government. So he is not an independent director. He is a director in his own right. So again, he has to be qualified. He has to have a DIN, and his term will be specified. So he is not a retiring director as well. So if he wants to get reappointed as a normal director, Section 160 will apply to him. Nominee director, Section 161, subsection 3 of the Act provides for appointment of nominee director. According to this section, again, subject to articles. So articles should have the power. So basically what will happen is that, suppose the bank gives loan to the company, and in the agreement they have stated that we will be appointing our person on the board. So subject to the agreement, the bank will, suppose ICICI Bank, they will recommend a name of a person that this is the guy we want on your board. So ICICI Bank can only recommend. They will not appoint. Appointment will be by the board only, subject to the articles. So in you can say, as per the contract, as per the loan agreement, ICICI Bank can only recommend that this is our guy. We want him to be on the board. The appointment will be done by the board, subject to the articles. So if the articles don't have the power, articles are not giving the power, first the company, which is the receiver, that is the borrower, will have to amend their articles. They will have to amend the articles by passing a special resolution at the shareholders meeting, and then the board will appoint that nominee director on the board. So the ICICI Bank, who is giving the loan, can only recommend. They will not appoint. Okay. So the language sounds like the bank is appointing a member on the board. No, they can only recommend. Appointment will be done by the board himself, by the board themselves, because the power, this section 161 gives the power to the board. Okay. In all these cases, you can see the board has the power, again subject to the articles. The board may appoint any person as a director nominated by. So they can only nominate. Okay. Nomination and appointment is different. The board may appoint any person as a director nominated by any institution. Now, let's just study this language closely. Is that the board may appoint any person as a director nominated by any institution in pursuance of the provisions of any law for the time being in force or any agreement. This is one part. Nominated by any institution, that is mostly bank or any financial institution which is granting loan as per provisions of the law, maybe the banking law, or as per the agreement, that is the loan agreement. That is one part. Or by central government or state government by virtue of its shareholding in the government company. This is the second part. Okay. So board can appoint nominee director in two cases: nominated by institution or by government. Institution when, in terms of their law, maybe the banking law or the loan agreement. Government in case of their shareholding. Okay. So you have to break down this provision. Simply stated, a nominee director is not like any other director. He represents the body which makes his nomination for appointment as a director in the company. Whenever a company obtains financial assistance from some financial institution or bank, such institution invariably nominates its representative for safeguarding its interest till the loan amount is completely repaid. Obviously, in case of big loans, not small loans. The nominee director is expected to ensure that the terms of the loan agreements are religiously complied with all the time by the company concerned, which has been granted the assistance. The board, subject to articles, is empowered to appoint a nominee director, and the shareholders cannot interfere with such appointment. The board has the power. Further, by virtue of its shareholding in the company, the central government or the state government may also nominate a person for appointment as nominee director, and the board shall have to follow the suit without any hindrance on its part. When the government recommends, you have to appoint anyways. Last part of this section is casual vacancy. Now, casual vacancy is what? Whenever a director who is appointed by the shareholders in general meeting, obviously is appointed for some term by the shareholders in general meeting. So he has a term. He vacates his office before his term, either because of his disqualification or by his death or resignation or disability. He vacates his office. So the position is vacant now. So a person who is appointed as a director by the shareholders general meeting for a particular term, his office becomes vacant. That is called a casual vacancy. Board has been given the power under this section to fill the casual vacancy. So board will be filling the casual vacancy within the 30 days period. Also, in the next general meeting after this appointment, they have to take approval of the shareholders also. So board can fill the vacancy plus take approval of shareholders in the next general meeting. That is what this provision is all about. But again, casual vacancy only arises when a director appointed by the shareholders in general meeting vacates before his term. If, for example, a director who was appointed in this casual vacancy by the board, he vacates. For example, A was the original director who was appointed by the shareholders. He vacated before his term. In his place, the board appointed B. A was the original director who was appointed by shareholders. He vacated before his term. In their place, in his place, the board appointed B. B also vacated, or B died, whatever. They are saying in that case there is no casual vacancy, because in the second case what happened? The board had appointed. Only when the shareholders appointed and there is a vacation, then that is casual vacancy. Then the board has the power to fill. If the board had appointed and then he had vacated, then that is not a casual vacancy. So you cannot fill that vacancy. Maximum the board can do is appoint additional director. Not that vacancy can be filled. Section 161 subsection 4 of the Act provides for appointment of director in casual vacancy. According to this section, if the office of any director appointed by company in general meeting is vacated, this line is very, very important. If the office of any director appointed by company in general meeting is vacated, only in this case it is casual vacancy. Before his term of office expires in the normal course, the resulting casual vacancy may, in default of and subject to any regulations in the articles of the company, be filled by the board at the meeting of the board, which shall be subsequently approved by members in the immediately next general meeting. So this vacancy can be filled by the board and subsequently approved by shareholders in the next general meeting, next general meeting. Any person so appointed shall hold office only up to the date up to which the director in whose place he is appointed would have held office if it had not been vacated. So the person who is appointed as a director in this casual vacancy, he will continue for the remaining term of the original person. So for example, the original director's term is like 5 years and now 2 years is left. So that person will continue for 2 years. The term casual means sudden happening, something which happened by chance or unexpectedly or unforeseen, but not by efflux of time. Efflux means passing of time. It happened unexpectedly, not in the normal course of things. A casual vacancy results when the office of any director appointed in general meeting is vacated before the expiry of his term in the normal course. This is not vacancy created due to retirement of director. It is created because certain other factors that are not linked with retirement, like occurrence of death, attraction of disqualification. So if director is disqualified, he has to vacate anyways. Tendering of resignation or removal. He was removed also by the shareholders. He was removed before his term, or he resigned, or he became disabled. Further, in this case, the term of the office of director, because of which the casual vacancy is created, does not get expired in the normal course. So in all these cases, they are not the term is not getting expired due to normal reasons. The normal course is not getting expired. The vacancy which was created due to the fact that the elected director declined to assume the office after his appointment at general meeting cannot be said to result in casual vacancy. Now, sometimes it might happen that in general meeting, a director was appointed. Okay. But he did not accept the offer. He did not assume the office. So you cannot say it was casual vacancy. Okay. Basically, he was never appointed because he didn't accept the appointment. They are saying a vacancy which was created due to the fact that elected director declined to assume the office. He refused the offer. Then that is not casual vacancy. The shareholder should appoint someone else in his place. So that is not a casual vacancy. So directors don't have the power to appoint any person in that case. In such a case where there is no assumption of office by director, so he never assumed office, how can he vacate? Thus, there is no casual vacancy. Now, subsection 4 says that articles need not expressly empower the board to fill casual vacancy. So here the word articles is not given, subject to articles. So they are saying section 161 subsection 4 does not require the article should expressly empower the board. When a casual vacancy occurs, it shall be filled by board at a meeting by passing a resolution and not otherwise. Board resolution at board meeting. And vacancy so filled shall be approved subsequently by members in the immediately next general meeting. It is to be noted that where articles contain any regulations as regards filing of casual vacancy, they need to be followed by the board. But subsequent approval of such filing of vacancy by members in the immediate general meeting is a must. So articles may empower or may not. This section is valid. At the same time, if the articles have given some procedure for the board for appointment of directors in casual vacancy, they will follow that. But in any case, shareholders' approval has to be taken. And as we have noticed, the casual vacancy arises when director appointed in general meeting vacates. So this can again be a practical question here, that they can say that Mr. A was appointed by the shareholders in general meeting. So he was appointed by shareholders. He vacated his office. In his place, the board appointed Mr. B, and Mr. B also vacates his office. The board appointed C. Is it valid? So you'll have to say that in the second case, it is not valid because board doesn't have the power to fill such a vacancy because it was not a casual vacancy in the first place. Because casual vacancy can only happen when shareholders had appointed that director in the general meeting and he vacates. So in the second case, when B vacated, B was never appointed by shareholders. He was always appointed by the directors. Even if they have taken approval of shareholders, that doesn't mean that he was appointed by the shareholders. Because in casual vacancy, what is happening? Board is appointing. So that doesn't lead to casual vacancy if he vacates. So that question can come. So they have discussed here. As we have noticed that the casual vacancy arises when any director appointed in general meeting vacates his office before the expiry of his term. Such appointment of director who vacates his office must have been made in general meeting. That's why they have written it in bold. And when the casual vacancy is filled by the board and subsequently approved by members in the immediately next general meeting, the matter ends there. Subsequently, if the casual vacancy is so filled, now is this casual vacancy was filled. Subsequently, this casual vacancy so filled is vacated due to some casual occurrence. So that person also vacates. Then it cannot be said to be a casual vacancy because it arose against an appointment which was not made in general meeting. Such type of vacancy needs to be filled by board by appointing additional director. So in that case, board can appoint additional director, but not a person in casual vacancy. So they cannot fill the vacancy actually by this section. They will have to go by section 161 subsection 1, that is additional director. Understood this point? Have you understood?
Yeah, I'll read it once more.
Okay, I'll repeat again.
Yeah.
What is happening? They are saying that the original line, the first line, is that casual vacancy can happen only when a director appointed in general meeting vacates. So only then this section applies, where the board will fill the vacancy within 30 days and take approval of the shareholders in the immediately next general meeting. So only in this case the casual vacancy provision applies. Now, if the person who is appointed in casual vacancy vacates, then this provision won't apply, because the person who was appointed in casual vacancy was appointed by the board. Okay. So casual vacancy provisions won't apply in that case. In that case, the directors will have to go for appointment of additional director if they want to appoint someone.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first director was appointed by the shareholders. Only then casual vacancy arises. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So that is very important. That shareholder has to be appointed in general meeting. That director has to be appointed in general meeting. A director appointed to fill a casual vacancy is not a casual director. So even if he is appointed a casual vacancy, he is a director in his own right. So he enjoys all the powers, rights, and everything of a director: duties, rights, liability, everything. So you cannot call him a casual director, even if it was appointed in a casual vacancy. He has all the rights. So he's a director in his full right. So he enjoys all powers as well as is required to bear the responsibilities of director in whose place he is appointed, except that where the earlier director was an interested director, his interest cannot be attached to the new director filling the vacancy. So, for example, if earlier director was an interested director, interested means he was interested in some contracts or agreements which the company was entering. So obviously, the new director cannot be assumed to be also interested. So this is a new person altogether. In case a company has appointed a woman director, now woman director, independent director, you already know that if woman director in section 149 we had studied that woman director, if she vacates office, if there is a vacancy in the office of a woman director, that is intermittent vacancy, then that has to be filled by the board within the next board meeting or 3 months, whichever is later. And same for independent director also. So that is what this section talks about. So that provision will apply in case of woman director, independent director. 149 will apply. Okay. So in case of woman director, because of the statutory requirement and an intermittent vacancy is created in the office, the board shall fill such casual vacancy at the earliest, but not later than the next board meeting or 3 months, whichever is later. Also for independent director is the same. So that 149 will apply in that case. Term of office obviously will continue till the remaining term of the director in whose place he is appointed. Subject to obviously the board will fill the vacancy and the general meeting should approve it. The immediately next general meeting shall approve it, and his term will continue for the remaining term of the original director in whose place he has been appointed. That is what this section is. So, what is the important part in this? I'll mark. Very important section. 161 is very important. each and every section is each and every part is important. So a question can come on additional, a question can come on alternate, nominee, casual, or all also they can ask. So again, a very technical question, or you can say technical section, so very important. So additional director, section 161, subsection 1, the whole thing. A, 1, 2, 3. So actually the section is still here only, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So you can write A, then 1, 2, 3. Term of office, very important. That's it. This is just the explanation. This is the explanation. So section actually is this 1, 2, 3, and a term is important. Then alternate director, section 161, subsection 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, 4 is sufficient, and term. Term, the whole thing you can write, because there can be questions asked on this part. Term, the whole thing, and also this point, appointment of alternate director by original director, because again a question can be before, without the example you can write till this point. Okay, so appointment of alternate director by original director, then term, and 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Nominee. Nominee starts from here and ends here. That's it. Casual vacancy starts from here and ends here. 1, 2. And then you can write this point, because the question comes on this point, as we have noticed. So you can write from the casual vacancy arises only when the director is appointed by shareholder. So up to additional director you can write, because again a question can be framed here. For a woman and independent director, the same provisions of 149 will apply in case of vacancy. That's it. And term, you can just write one line. The term of office continues till such time up to which the term of the director, because of whom the vacancy was created, would have been continued. Or you can just add this line also. The person shall hold the casual vacancy up to the date up to which the director in whose place he is appointed would have continued in the office. That is the unexpired term of the director. So you can just write term of office will be up to the unexpired term of the director in whose place he is appointed. So in small short words you can write. Okay, have you understood all the sections?
डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करा फक्त टॉप टू बॉटम चालू करा, म्हणजे जे हायेस्ट पासून त्या अतिशय पार्ट सुरू करा. निगेटिव्ह सोडून दे. ओके, आधी फक्त पॉझिटिव्ह वरती फोकस करा.
Yes.
Okay, fine, we'll continue tomorrow. Okay,
Yeah.
आपण कंटिन्यू. Miscellaneous.
Okay, thank you.